Joining us live, Republican Congressman from Florida, Matt Gaetz, who also serves on the Armed Services Committee. He's here with some instant analysis on several things. But first about the death of one of the most powerful Iranian military commanders. Congressman, your initial thoughts?
I am no cheerleader for war with Iran. The president has shown amazing restraint when it comes to Iran. Remember, there were people who wanted the president to respond aggressively militarily when Iran shot down a drone or when they were engaged in activities in the Straits of Hormuz. But the president was very clear that if there was harm to Americans, that he would respond not with proportionate response, but with overwhelming force. And that is what we've seen occur here. I support the president's decision. Soleimani was one of the leading destabilizing forces in the Middle East, and he's really the architect of the genocidal strategy that we saw at play in Syria. So I believe the world will be a better place without Soleimani in it.
And we've just gotten in a tweet from one of your colleagues across the aisle, Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, saying this: so what if Trump wants war, knows this leads to war, and needs the distraction? Real question is, will those with congressional authority step in and stop him? I know I will. What about this debate? Because there are a lot of lawmakers out there tonight saying he had no approval for this. He needed Congress to act in order to do this.
It's really rich for the squad to be referencing a distraction when this entire impeachment debacle has been their distraction from the important work before the Congress that could actually impact the lives of Americans. If President Trump wanted war with Iran, there were plenty of other opportunities to do that. He expressly does not want war with Iran, neither do I. But when you have Soleimani out there animating the most destabilizing tactics in the Middle East, it's important. You'll remember, Shannon, that the people who stormed our embassy wrote Soleimani is our leader on the walls as they were breaching. I don't think they'll be writing anyone else's names on those walls if they care about them.
Okay, let's turn to impeachment. Mark Meadows saying that, listen, you put together your A-team, Jim Jordan, Matt Gaetz, John Ratcliffe, he threw you in there. We don't know when or if this is going to happen in the Senate, but what can you tell us about the strategy moving forward?
I can tell you the president deserves the A-team. I can also share that the defense will be multifaceted. There'll be some folks who do the work on the Senate floor. I would expect Pat Cipollone, the White House counsel, to quarterback that group of people. I think Alan Dershowitz would be an excellent addition to that team. But of course, Shannon, there are a core group of House members, myself, Jim Jordan, Mark Meadows, I would say Lee Zeldin, John Ratcliffe, who have really lived these facts day in, day out for 2 years. And I think that we can add a lot to the defense in terms of the context, the witnesses, and also a real reflection of who the relevant jury is here. I don't think that the United States Senate is the only jury that matters. This is a case that we have to make to the American electorate and to the world. I mean, we are the shining example of democracy in the world, and if we allow the votes of tens of millions of Americans to be disqualified by some people in Washington, D.C., I think that sends a really bad message for our country.
Tonight, there are a number of Democrats who are speaking out saying, pointing to a published report of a writer or group that claims to have seen unredacted emails involving OMB officials saying the president gave direct orders to hold up this aid. Tonight, the House Intel Chairman Adam Schiff says this: they directly corroborate witnesses who testified that military aid to Ukraine was withheld at the direction of the president and that the White House was informed doing so may violate the law. Top Democrat over in the Senate, Chuck Schumer, says it's new evidence that raises questions that can only be answered by having these key witnesses pulled in. What do you say about these new revelations?
I don't think they're new at all. We all knew that the aid was withheld. There's also an NSC opinion that said that withholding of that aid was appropriate. That gives the president plenty of justification to want to ascertain whether or not there would be these corruptive influences. Now, we also know that in between the president's call with Zelensky and the ultimate delivery of that aid, there were 7 other meetings with senators, with ambassadors, with the vice president, where the case was effectively made by the Ukrainians that they would use this aid effectively. The president's belief that corruption could give the U.S. taxpayer a bad deal is something that's been, I think, well reflected in his views on aid generally and specifically the Ukraine.
I know you're with the president tonight. Can you tell us anything about how he's feeling with both these major stories looming, the airstrike taking out General Soleimani and now facing potentially the Senate trial very soon?
I would describe the president's mood this evening as very focused. I think he was really dialed into the ways in which Soleimani was planning to kill Americans, to harm our diplomats, and to throw the entire region into civil war. I think we understand that this is a big moment in time. He appreciates the gravity of that. But I think that the safety and security of Americans was central to the president's thinking. And I think he's aware that in the Obama administration, these red lines were drawn, they were crossed, and then there was no consequence. Here, the president gave ample warning, but when Iran did not heed that warning, heads had to roll.
All right, Congressman Matt Gaetz joining us live from Florida tonight. Good to see you.
Good to see you, Shannon.